And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Peter J. Redding, and welcome to Tuesdays with Peter. That'd be me. Here's what I'm thinking about today. I'm thinking about myself, the word self. And so the question is, who is myself? What is myself? When I refer to myself, what self am I referring to? So again, kind of going through midlife crisis, like who am I? What's my contribution to the world? All those kind of existential, explorations that I've been on now for, since midlife crisis. And the more I think about it, and the more the quotes, and how I love quotes that people refer to, be yourself. Everybody else is taken, Oscar Wilde or Whoopi Goldberg in terms of the hardest thing you'll ever do is to be yourself. For me, I don't know if I'm schizo or what, but I've got so many cells that I've kind of lost track. So I thought we'd explore all the various versions of what an individual might refer to as self, themself. And my underlying premise here, if any of you that have been following me for any time at all, is that there is a core self, ergo, right? CoreSELFie.com, CoreSELFie. Picturing yourself from the inside out. So the core self that I refer to in layman's terms, if you will, is that pure, unadulterated, God-endowed self, pure self, magnificent self, unchanging self, that is endowed with core values, endowed with life purpose, endowed with natural gifts and talents, or if you will, God-given gifts and talents that have been there from birth. And I don't know, but maybe even before birth, maybe in the past lifetime, maybe in utero, that the sense of self is a nucleus of my physical manifestation, my mental manifestation, my intellectual manifestation, my emotional manifestation, my spiritual manifestation. There's a concept that we talked about back in the 70s and 80s of the inner part of an individual that is whole, perfect, and complete. Whole, perfect, and complete. Doesn't need any modifications. It doesn't need work. Now, I believe that you can have access to that. I believe that you can enhance the use of that whole, perfect, and complete self, core self, nuclei, the nucleus of a human being. And then what happens is that there's a whole bunch of other cells that get not redefined, but defined for me by my parents, by my educators, by my society, by my gender, by my age or group that I've been born into, me, a baby boomer, okay? Others of you millennials, others of you Gen X and so on, that are expected to be this. And so there's a whole bunch of other cells that are, if you will, plastered onto the core self. And at midlife crisis, there were so many of these things that were plastered onto my whole, perfect, and complete self that I had lost track of my whole, perfect, and complete self altogether. In fact, not even sure that I had a consciousness that it was still there or was even available or accessible anymore. Because I was a product of my generation. I was a product of my education. I was a product of my socialization that I had to be this as an executive. I had to be this as a American. I had to be this as a partner in life, right? So the question on the table today, or the exploration, I'm going to invite you. And of course, these things is Tuesdays with Peter. You can ask me anything you want. You can ask me anything about learning. You can ask me anything about coaching. You can ask me anything about self-mastery. All open. But the focal point, at least that I'm bringing to as a potential focal point today, is how many other selves am I working on? Am I continuing to move away from in some cases, or that I am having to deal with because that has how the outside world is viewing me? So am I obligated to play that game of, yeah, you see me as an educator, you see me as a trainer, you see me as a coach, you see me as a, again, American Caucasian male. So am I playing the game of trying to placate, navigate the self that you are ascribing to me just because you're seeing the external part of me? Or to what degree have I let go of that and I am focusing on aligning my life, my decisions, my plans with the core being, with the core of who I have always been, who I will always be, regardless of anything from the outside world. So here's, I've mentioned several of them already, but I'd be interested in terms of additional ones that you are aware of for yourself. Is the self that is defined by age. I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm in this generation, therefore our principles in this generation is to bring compassion back into humanity because the last generations have not done that. Myself is, another way of describing myself is from a cultural standpoint. I grew up as an American. I grew up as a middle class, but highly educated. Again, this is another self. Myself as an educated self, as a went through university, went through postgraduate university and a master's degree, and so on. I can describe myself in terms of the roles that I am in. So I have been in a role of executive. I've been in a role of team leader. I've been in a role of coach. I've been in a role of coach trainer. I've been in a role of coach mentor. I've been in the role of an assessor. So these are the different kinds of roles that I'm actually, a lot of those I'm still currently participating in fully, kind of on a week by week, day by day basis. I can look at myself as a able-bodied, and that classifies me in a category of no visible disability. I can categorize myself as Caucasian in terms of race, color, and all that comes with that, the good, the bad, and the ugly of that in terms of how other people hold that. There is an emotional self in terms of compassionate. There's an emotional self of self-identifying with a loving openness to my fellow brothers and sisters around the world. I've often referred to myself as a global citizen. So my perspective, my worldview, again, is part of that external self. Now, there may be strings or tentacles that come out of my core self that aid me in my self-perception of these external things. And to the degree that it's life affirming, hip hip hooray. To the degree that it's blinding me from other senses of reality, then they may get in my way. They may still be getting in my way. My message to every human being that listens to this or that's currently present in the inner circle in a Zoom room right now is you are an innately magnificent human being, period. Regardless of how other people's might have discounted you or dismissed you or have not allowed your voice to be heard in your environment, whether that be at home or at work. I'm going to repeat it again. Every human being, I believe, is innately magnificent. It's the way that your creator created each of us to be from the get-go. The baggage that we carry, some of it put there by circumstances, some by well-meaning parents or educators or social media, the soup that we swim in, and we've been swimming in from the day that we were born, maybe even before. But you're innately magnificent. You always have been. You are now. You always will be, regardless of all the other selves that have been tacked on to that core self. And I'm also going to share an inspirational thing, hopefully, that you have access to that right now. There may be a thicker shell that surrounds the core self, the innately magnificent, awesome, whole, perfect, and complete self. And there may be distrust. There may be protectiveness. There may be layers of, I'm safe in my cocoon. I don't want to kind of upset the apple cart. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to push against forces that are holding these outer protective shells. And for those of you that have the courageousness and the tenacity and the well-being to get through all those outer shells, to allow that inner self, core self, to radiate out into the planet, into the universe, it's a courageous journey. It is an absolutely courageous journey. And when I first got into this kind of work, I guess you call it, because it was work for me, it was so hard initially in the first year or two, 3, 4, 5, that I prayed to my God to put me back into my cocoon. It's just too damn hard. It's just let me have the peace, have the level of comfort that I used to have, because being myself it's too hard right now. After that initial period of time, I stuck with it. It has been a complete releasing of so much energy that went into maintaining that cocoon, maintaining that shell, maintaining all those other selves that people expected or wanted or had come to expect that from me. And to release that, it's like I lost 50 pounds worth of, unnecessary burden in trying to maintain all those other defined selves or selves that have been told that it was good for me to have those things. Those things would protect me from the harshness of life. Those things would get me ahead in the world. Those things would allow me to succeed. Those things would allow me to have a good life. But a lot of times they didn't. A lot of times they were just plain burdens. Now, here's a stark reality that I've come to, is that if I am not being my core self, then I will never be able to be fully, I will never have the sense of fully being fulfilled. Because if I'm trying to be somebody else, or I'm trying to placate my parents, my culture, my generation, my education, my role in life, for the sake of somebody else's feeling good about me or about me, then I'm not being myself, and I'm not doing the work I'm here to do. I'm denying the people that I can support. Hopefully I can inspire, I can instruct, I can inform, by being a representation of here's what core self looks like. It's about authenticity. It's about being real. It's about having huge compassion for those that don't have that, or that are searching for that, or that are trying to claw their way out of this cocoon, which every day that I'm in that cocoon, the protective shell has done its work. And now I begin to die bit by bit by being in that cocoon, because I cannot be fully expressed. So there's a lot of pontification going on here. And so the CoreSELFtech.com is again my gift back to the world. It came through me. There's 6 components to this that are all there at CoreSELFtech.com. I encourage you and everybody else that you know to go through those things. They can be self-facilitated. I teach these things in a higher level, and coach training, coach for life training. But an individual that has access to the internet can access it for free. I give it freely. And an exercise on, first of all, the revealing of who am I? What are those core elements in core self? And you can articulate those through a very simple process. It'll take you probably 10 minutes to do it, maybe 20 minutes at the very most. You can do it on your own, in the privacy of your own room, and the privacy of your own home, privacy of your own space. The other processes is the self-validation process. Could that be really true? Could I get that kind of insightfulness about myself in a matter of 10 or 20 minutes? The answer is yes, by the way. But there's a self-validation process that you go through. You're using your words, fill in the blanks, and it will come back and say validated to the first level, validated to the second level, validated to the third level. And if you're validated to even the first level, it's probably pretty accurate. Second and third levels, it's yeah, you've nailed it. That's a great articulation of who I am. So that's the validation process. The third one is, now that I know who I am, and I've cut through the outer shell, that outer rim that we've been talking about here for the first few minutes, is how do I put it into practice? How do I align my life? How do I align my goals? How do I align my aspirations to the truth of who I really am, as opposed to, again, all the outer self? Here's the deal. If you align with who you think you are, or the self that you have been defined by others as, And it's mostly unconscious, by the way. It's like, yeah, well, okay, so I'm living a comfortable life, and isn't that okay? Well, yeah, for those that are happy to be comfortable and not necessarily fulfilled. And I'm here to say that there's so much more. And it's accessible to you if you choose to do it, choose to have it. So the third process is all about alignment. Are my current goals of becoming the CEO of the organization, or starting my own business, or having 3 kids, whatever those might be, none of those by themselves is good or bad, basically. The question is that your work to do? Is that who you were meant to be, or you were meant to do in this lifetime? And so the third process is all about alignment. Are these aligned, or to what degree are these aligned with my core self? A little bit? 50-50? A lot? And then there's 3 more processes after that go into self-assessments. To what degree am I using my potential? What degree am I not using my full potential in my life right now? Very insightful and self-explanatory. And there's a great one in there about habits that you can track. Am I having a great day? You're probably aligned with yourself to a greater degree. Am I having a lousy day, or several lousy days in a row? I feel off kilter. I feel like I'm trying to, placate everybody else in my life. I'm not taking good care of myself, all those kinds of things. Then the scores are typically lower. And again, this is all self-rated. I'm not going to monitor it. It doesn't go anywhere else except for your own computer or your own mindset. So I'm going to stop talking, at least for a little bit, and get impressions from those that are in the inner circle here, or questions that they may have, or anything you want to share about anything. Who would like to comment? Who would like to share?
Maybe I'll go first, Peter.
Thanks, Vivek. Go ahead.
The fascinating thing is, about the self, and that I'll just say a word or two on that. Is that everyone has their own definition of self. This is the beauty of it, and the real self is inclusive of all that. No matter which way we define it, I'm a professional, then the truth is the real self is that too. I'm a race car driver. Well, then you are that too. You're that too. You're that too. So it's quite limitless. But the process of being able to define it for oneself is really the largest part of the journey. Because I remember I asked somebody, he said, what do you believe is the self? And this person said that whatever the person believes it to be true. And so I said, what do you believe is true for you? And that's how the conversation went. But that first part stayed, with me, that it's whatever concept it is for anyone. At that point, it's true for them. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah, so self is self-described. Self is self-believed. Self is my current state of, here's who I think I am. I am a dad. I have 2 kids. I am in a primary relationship. I am an executive. I am climbing up the corporate ladder. That's who I am. And that is 100% true. My question is, the deeper question is that congruent with your core self? Because I think there's something deeper. But a person is what they believe they are. I I think part of my life purpose is to open up the question for people and say, is that it? Is there a bigger, more important, divine self that is lurking underneath the temporal, situational self of your current life? But I believe that, my purpose at, 30 years old was to get ahead in the organization that I was working for, and to be a better provider for my family, and to be a good citizen of the world. And that was the way I defined myself at 30 years old. I think midlife crisis occurs for anybody that has a sense of consciousness of, is that all there is to life? Is that all there is, Alfie? The concept of, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I've been all the things I'm supposed to be. But I still feel like I have a hole inside of me, an HOLE inside of me. There's something missing. And what's my purpose? Am I here to what am I here to contribute beyond my family, beyond my initial wherever I am? Like I say, this is a courageous journey, and I don't think it's a journey for everybody. Hopefully it would be. And my mandate, I guess, is to say, look deeper, buddy. There's more to life than blank. There's more to life than even having 2 kids. There's more to life than being an executive. There's more to life than, growing older. So it's a challenge. I challenge everybody on the planet, right, who can hear this or listen to this. The deeper you, and yeah, take on the challenge of being wholly and fully yourself. Who else? I see Charles, Rajiv, Rajita. Rajiv, yeah? What are your thoughts? What's being tickled today?
Peter, I have a question to ask.
Okay.
You mentioned that you spoke about your early life, and where you were very focused on your maybe career, taking care of your family, accumulating, maybe having meeting all the needs, external needs of yours, but miss the inner ones, right? So
Yep.
my question is, if it is not for those goals to take care of your family, bring more security to your life, to ensure that we are having that sense of progress and all of that, if it is not for that, then what should ideally prompt any action in you?
If I'm not focusing on the externals, what would stimulate a journey to something different internally, perhaps? Is that the question?
No, the question is, if I don't have a goal, maybe it's to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm working very hard towards getting that. Right. If I don't have that goal, then what will give me a direction? What will give me a plan, or what will prompt my actions towards that goal? If and at the same time, if I'm missing my core self, in that quest of achievement, you compromise the core self, but then those goals are required for you to maybe to survive, to take a lot of lot of doing or acting. So Did you get my question?
Well, part of it is the motivation. Part of it I'm hearing is the congruency or the incongruency of, going after goals. And I have nothing against, becoming a CEO or earning more money or having a second home or sending your kids to the best universities that are available, to them and to you and to your economic means and to their educational brain power, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing wrong with any part of that. My question is this congruent or aligned with my purpose of being here on the planet? Maybe your purpose in life is to be the CEO of a company that has hundreds of thousands of employees around the globe. And your purpose is to be that CEO that has a compassionate heart, that are people, that's people oriented, that supports them to have healthy lives. That may be your purpose in life, your core purpose, not your temporal external purpose. Will you be compensated for that richly? I hope so. Here's the rub for me, is that if I am solely focused on the externals with no concept of my own internals, then I am an incomplete human being. How many people do each of you know that are millionaires or are wealthy, however that's defined in your society, that are living a miserable life? They're cantankerous, they're edgy, they're not happy, they're always judging other people around them as not being productive enough, or they're not being whatever their judgments might be. Here's my estimation of that, because I used to be that, by the way. So what's happening is that I am in judgment of others because I'm not doing that for myself. I think that can be a both and. I don't think this is an either or. Okay, so I'm an externally focused person, or I'm an internally focused person. There's no in between. There's no layering. I don't believe that. My question is this in alignment with your life purpose? Do you even know your life purpose? Most people don't. They think their purpose is, again, it's all been defined by their society or their culture or their education or their parents. Your purpose is to grow up and to be a proper engineer, get married, have 2 kids, have the first one be a male child, please. All right. And so there's a mentality of society that is impregnated into a human being, whatever that might be, in terms of what successful life looks like. What I'm asking is that an individual take a look at that for themselves. And first of all, to figure out what is their life purpose. Their core self, their core self life purpose, their divine purpose, if you will. And then take a look at the rest of life as it is. If I do have 2 children, am I treating them as 2 beautiful human beings that have been entrusted to my care to grow up to be their awesome, magnificent selves, and in their unique way? Do I have the tolerance of having one of them be a homosexual? Do I have the tolerance for a female child to grow up as a strong, independent woman that has a voice and is here to support what she's here to support in the world? Am I doing that as a dad that is in alignment with my life purpose of whatever that might be? Or am I in a continuation of, no, you have to go to this kind of school to be successful. You have to be married by the time that you're 26 years old to an arranged marriage. And I'm not picking on the Indians right now because there's arranged marriages that take place all around the world. Is that in the best interest of your daughter? Does that fulfill your life purpose? So I think it's a both and for both internally and external goals and aspirations. The only thing that I ask is it conscious and aligned with who I am, or is it in reaction to or in fulfillment of my parents, my grandparents, my forefathers, that as an American male, I have to be this? As an elder now, do I do what all the other elders do around the world, or at least a lot of them in society, saying, okay, so you're supposed to be retired, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. Not for me, at least not yet. So I don't know if that answers your question, Rajiv, in terms of the congruence of external and internal motivation. I have obligations as a dad. Yes, I have an obligations as a, as a worker for my organization, even if it's my own. I have obligations to that. Yes, I get that. And there's 1,000 other ways that you can fulfill that. Maybe more, maybe 5,000 other ways that you can fulfill those things. And maybe a half a dozen of those are more congruent with my life purpose. One of my generation's big fallacies, I believe, and my father and grandfather's generations, was I'm supposed to work as hard as I possibly can until I die. Okay, so at least you're productive. But is that fulfilling? Is it I can work at this, doing exactly this, right? What I'm doing right now, or I could be in a factory someplace working really, really hard. This is more in alignment with my core being, my core self. Bringing spirituality and temporal world together, my uniqueness and my oneness with spirit, to create a bodacious flourishing of life. That's my purpose. And that's my experience, that I have a sense of a bodacious flourishing of life. When I do that, I can bring those things together from me and my life, and I can support others to do that in our coaches training, my coaching clients. They can bring those two elements together, and it's like, so Rajiv, what are you hearing out of that, if anything, that makes sense for you?
Yeah. While you're saying that, Peter, what I hear is, it's important to have goals, but when you work towards achieving your goals in alignment with your core self, I think, you remove attachment to your goals, and the journey towards your goal itself becomes very fulfilling, instead of the goal as an end. You assume that when I reach that point, that will bring me to fulfillment. But when you're aligned with your core self and you operate out of it, I think the journey itself becomes fulfilling, is what I'm hearing you say. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Right on. My experience. Again, earlier in life, I would go after a goal. I achieved that goal. And it was very temporal. It was like, 3 weeks later, it's like, not quite as, satisfying as I thought it would or hoped it would be. So now I'm after the next bigger goal. It's like an addiction. So I'm addicted to achieving my goal, but there's no substance, there's no longevity, there's no reinforcing, again, of what I call the life purpose. It was for somebody else's purpose. Did I benefit from that? Yeah, they paid me well, or I went on a bonus trip, or I got the next promotion, or I got, the accolades, the notoriety of achieving blank. But it was like vaporware. Just went whoop. So I need to get the next big hit. But there was little or no internal, oh, wow. Good job, Peter. Well done. Yeah. There's some of that, but not a lot. There's a lot of that now. There's a lot of that now that, graduates will send me an email, 10 years after they went through our training and say, Peter, thank you for the training that I had with you 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 3 years ago. It's helped change my life for the better. See, that's the flourishing of life. All right. Yeah. Who else? Question? How many cells do you operate from? Rajita? Oh, she got a big long comment here. All right, so let me read this out loud, Rajita. So, being the true self and taking off the show self, ourselves, could lead to paying high costs, high stakes, sometimes even home, finances, family. This could lead to panic or insecurity, feeling unsafe with regards to losing it, so-called. All when so-called everything falls apart. The ground beneath sinks 100%. True self, especially in midlife, could have such stakes. What's your comment on this scenario? Yeah, you just described my life, basically. It's like, yeah, there can be a collapse of a false self. A collapse. Like if I don't have a high paying job, if I'm not a corporate executive, if I'm not earning money, if I'm not married, if I'm not doing this, and this. And basically all of that starts to collapse onto itself, if you will, because it is a construct of my old self. And as soon as I start reconstructing what my internal, I think, infinite construct, core self is, then some of those things just don't fit. Or at least the way that I was doing them or going about being in those different roles don't fit anymore. I had a relationship once that I needed her and she needed me. And so we leaned on each other like a teepee. And when I started taking better care of myself, then the relationship collapsed because it was no longer mutually supportive. So there can be breakup or breakdown in this transition. And the tenacity and the relevance and the importance of that, having it be internally, life being internally driven by core self, begins to take on a life of its own. And it's a muscle that hasn't been used for, in my case, 35 years. I did what I was told. I went to school where I was told to go. I learned what I was supposed to learn. I got the jobs I was supposed to do. I gave service to my country the way I was supposed to be. But it was all externally driven. Well, 90% of it was externally driven. When I started standing up for what fulfills me, and this is not a hubris exercise by any means, in fact, it's incredibly humbling. God endowed this, my creator endowed this inside of me. How am I honoring that? Am I honoring that? Am I making choices and decisions according to fulfilling that, if you will, inner self, core self? As I started doing that, and I continue to do that, hopefully till today and then beyond, as long as I'm alive, it strengthens it. There is it makes sense. It's fulfilling. It's reinforcing me being me, me being my real me, as opposed to my programmed, conditioned, socialized me. Some people will really get that and they will be attracted to you. There's some people that go, what, are you nuts? You're giving this up and you're giving this up, and like, what, you're throwing this away? Because they don't understand that process, or it reminds them that they're not doing it either, and it scares the hell out of them. And so again, that judgment comes out because you're the easiest, closest person to reinforcing for them that no, I better batten down the hatches and just, keep my knuckles to the grindstone. So yeah, I think that's reality, and I think that's what keeps a lot of people away from this deeper work. Rajita, what do you think about that? What comes through for you? What's true for you? And she's saying her mic's not working. Okay. So glad we have the chat box on. Where are we? We have about maybe 10, 12 minutes left here. Anybody that we haven't heard from yet that would like to share about this, your sense of self, or your sense of shifting to a higher or deeper divine sense of self sometime during your life, and that journey that you've taken, or what it means for you?
Coach, there's a question from Oracle on the chat box.
Okay, let me see if I can see that. It's not coming through on my chat box for some reason. I don't know why. Is it YouTube chat box?
No, it's this one.
Peter, it says, what would make me get up in the morning? Is that the question?
Okay, yes, now I'm seeing it. Thank you. What would make me get up in the morning? Question mark. Is that the question? That's part of the question, I think. What's the internal motivation of getting up? What's the internal motivation of doing what I do? I think it goes deeper than that. The question that I love asking is this my work to do? Because if I'm not doing the work I'm here to do, then I'm doing somebody else's work that somebody else should be doing. So that's a deeper question for me. Is this my work to do? Not is it worthwhile work to do, because there's all kinds of worthwhile work to do. But is this my work to do? When I get up in the morning and my day's planned for, doing live video or streaming or coaching or planning the next training program or going out in my wood shop, is this my work to do? I think is more poignant to life purpose. Yeah, so I think that's pointing towards it, but I think that there's some deeper questions of, am I living, am I contributing to those that I'm here to contribute to through my work? So Oracle, what do you think about that? I'll put it back on you. Oracle says, well, that was my question to understand Rajiv's question. Okay, got it. Yeah. I think there's lots of motivations in life. I think some of them are worthy. I think some of them are less than worthy. I think some of them are aligned with who I'm meant to be. And I think there's a lot of them, and at least in my life, that were not aligned with who I was meant to be. I'm not audible, I think. Yeah, I'm not getting any audio from you. My mic too is not working. I have something to share. Good, I'd love to have you share something. You're unmuted from the Zoom standpoint because you're showing up as being audible, but there may be something on your side that the mic is muted on your computer or on your headset, one of the two. Rajita is saying, for me, you say resonates perfectly. What you say resonates perfectly. However, there are questions from women, especially. Being self means losing marriage, money, could be kids, and then what remains for them, especially at middle age. How to deal with such questions. Tough questions. Tough questions. If you're not the breadwinner and you have been the homemaker and the child caregiver, yeah, it's like walking a plank. Now I'm hearing somebody coming through. Is that Oracle?
Yep, I am.
Yay!
So I logged in parallelly through my phone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So here, what I wanted to share was my.
Can you get closer to your mic, Oracle?
Okay. Yeah.
You're fading in and out as you're bopping back and forth.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So here, I wanted to share my journey on my moment from my presented self, or maybe my unconscious self, to my core self.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been an amazing journey. I'm in the middle of it. I think just by intuition today, when I logged in, I named myself my future self name, which you could see. It's just totally intuitive. And you happen to speak on the same area. What I'm observing is that as I've taken this journey from a moment to my own core self, I think I'm still in a fragile path, in the sense that there's so much happening when the realization comes in what is not truly me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm able to see what are the conditions, or what are the beliefs, or what are the behavioral patterns that I have picked up from other people, including parents, family, relatives, and sometimes even with our colleagues. And when the latest observations are when I am into the temperament of picking up something from somebody I either admire. And the irony is also when I observe that if you dislike something in some other person, and the next moment I see myself, having the tendency to do that. So I think it's more about the kind of thought that we pick up and the attention that we give to. So that whole process is coming very clear to me. I'm still into the freezing place, but there is, I would say, yes, it is an extremely courageous journey. And there are times when you really, really want to say, okay, it's enough. Whatever way I am, it is okay. But the unraveling doesn't stop.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's both the good news and the bad news all wrapped up into one. It's like, oh nuts. I thought I had arrived, right? And there's more, but I applaud your consciousness. It has to be part of this journey. If you're not conscious about what you're doing now that is misaligned, perhaps, or not completely aligned with your core self, That's a starting point. Yeah, I have to know that in order to do something about it. Or I have to be pushed or nudged or, barraged by lots of things to bring that level of consciousness up and say, oh, okay, so I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of not being heard. I'm sick and tired of being reduced because of my status in life, because I'm not as educated as you, because I'm not as white as you, because I'm not as old as you, because I'm not blah, 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 blah. But when I become conscious, now I have something I can do about it. Okay, so what do I want to do about this? Vivek's got a comment back to you in terms of the journey from my projected self, my projected, if you will, external self, to my core self. That's stupendous. And the consciousness of that journey is absolutely relevant to being able to even choose to make it or not make it. Yeah. Love it, love it, love it. And as my partner says, and there's more. I don't care where you are in the journey, and there's more. It's called a journey, not a destination. It's called a journey intentionally because I am still on the path of consciousness, choice making, alignment, non-alignment. And that's, I think, frankly, that's the juice of life. It's like, oh, good. Look what I learned today. Look what I'm relearned today. Look what I've unlearned today. Woohoo. Yeah.
I think it's a lot of dropping, a lot of dropping the layers, a lot of unlearning, and simply the realization, basically. I don't think there's any learning, but a lot of realizations, experiential. When it's, I used to speak all these things, like I used to read and speak, but I think it's very difficult to describe the experience of being and going through that, and the courage it takes. We just cannot explain it to anybody.
It's
but
huge.
to own our own true self is, oh my God, I would say, yeah, it takes efforts. Yeah.
And I would add that the journey is worth it. For all of those of
Yes,
you
it
that
is.
haven't started this journey and are scared to death of this journey, again, because of kids, because of realities, because of who takes care of me, and how do I earn money, and how do I put a roof over my head if I leave my comfortable life right now. They're not easy choices, and I don't make them out to be easy choices.
Yeah. So I call it like this, if I would have to summarize it, and that's a statement I think puts it together, is that you have to first die to really live.
Yeah. That's pretty dramatic, but part of you has to die. Part of you has to unlearn. Part of you has to let go. And I've been through all of that personally. It was excruciating journey for me. Like I said, I prayed to my God, please put me back in being a place of oblivion. This is just too damn tough. And I had more support structure around me than most people in the world, and it was still tough for me to do that. So I have incredible compassion for those that have less of a support structure around them. But again, from an inspirational standpoint, other people with less resources than you have gone through this journey successfully. Okay, so we have about 1 minute to wrap this up. Any final words that anybody wants to share? Brilliant insights, Oracle. Thank you, from Charles. This is so true, Oracle. The limited concepts of self has to give way to the unlimited self. Thank you, Vivek. Sensing a lot of energy in the session today. Thank you, Rajiv. I appreciate all of you, your energy, the support, the holding the space, not just for me and being able to do this live streaming, but for everybody that listens to this afterwards, and being a representation and a voice for, yeah, it is possible to live more and more of my core self. And I do that on a day-to-day journey. So God bless. Namaste. See you next week.
Namaskar.